Chandra Levy.
Yeah, that was that was an interesting. That was an interesting case because I just did a Court TV episode about the Georgetown Starbucks murders, and I picked that one. They said if you pick one that's fascinating for you, and for me it was fascinating for a number of reasons because it seemed so inexplicable. It seemed to be in a place where that stuff just doesn't happen. But Katie Mahoney, the manager of Starbucks, had just left the White House. She was a White House intern where she worked with Monica Lewinsky.
Yeah.
And back in '97, with all that stuff with the Clinton administration, people were thinking, well, did the Clintons have her killed because Monica told her something? And
they were letting their imaginations run wild.
There were articles about that in major newspapers, and people were wondering about that. Same thing sort of with Chandra Levy, congressman. Obviously, everybody sort of believed early on, gee, did he kill her? And it seemed like he might have killed her. And then
she's a cold case.
She's a cold case. And 9/11 came along, and then everybody forgot.
Do you have any theories on that?
Or
do yours not count because it's going to be the mind of a fiction writer?
Right, I know. What do we know? What do we know? We don't know much.
No, but what do you think?
I think in an urban area like this, where you have a single woman who goes out by herself in particular areas, who knows? Bad things happen in Georgetown now too.
Yeah.
You can be at risk anywhere you are. The guy who did the Starbucks killings, he walked in there. The only reason he picked that Starbucks is because they didn't have a surveillance camera out front. If they'd had a camera out front, he never would have gone in. And he just went in, and things got out of hand, and he killed 3 people and never even took the money out of the safe and ran off. It was just sort of this coincidental kind of thing. Bad timing, wrong place, wrong time. And I think, where she was sort of found and what had happened to her, that she was probably a victim of. She ran into the wrong guy at the wrong time, unfortunately.
Mark Foley.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah. Couldn't make that up, could you?
No. No, if I did, you go to Amazon.com and say, this guy, he's awful. He doesn't know how to write a book. Sometimes, though, if you look at profiles of pedophiles and predators, they are often in places where there are kids around, younger people around, because that's sort of their prey. And that's why you have to have background checks done in all these different places.
Have you used the pedophile theme in any of your books?
No, and I probably because I have kids of my own, and I really want to address that. The only thing I came close to in our game was a serial killer, and I did this sort of to warn people that the way he trolled for his victims, he would go into a supermarket parking lot and he would sit and he would look at the cars, and there was a van there. And the van had a sign that says, they want to sell the van, and they had their home phone number on the side of the van. So he knows he has their home phone number. Then he looked inside the van, and he saw the woman had left her cell phone in there. So
that was the scary part, all the ways that we reveal ourselves without even thinking about it.
He walked away 5 minutes later knowing everything there was to know about this woman. Everything.
Yeah.
And we're very vulnerable that way, and we never think about it that way. But we give out so much information without even realizing it. And in that, there was a scene in that book where there was a child involved in seeing a murder. But I've never written a book where a child actually was murdered. I don't think I'll ever go there.
What do you consider the greatest unsolved mystery in Washington?
Did it have to happen in Washington?
Well, that intrigues you.
Yeah.
I don't know, just something that's alive for you.
Well, who shot JFK? Who really killed JFK? For me, is
still.
I mean, I remember being 3 years old and drawing a little piece of paper for my parents, and it had the car, and it had this guy up here, and it had a line, with a bullet coming down, and I was like, that's it. I'm like 3 years old.
Have you gone there and retraced their steps?
I've gone to Dallas, and I've seen the book building, and I haven't done an elaborate sort of retracing, although I saw a great program on A&E where they brought in filmmakers, technical filmmakers who came in and very excruciatingly precise detail sort of rebuilt the entire thing, the car, the height of the seats, and everything. Right. And they determined that he could have done it himself, that Lee Harvey Oswald could have fired the shot that hit Connolly and also killed JFK. But for me, it's...
But you don't believe that?
I don't know. I think it's one of those things that will never really be solved satisfactorily to everyone.
Have you looked into it much? I mean, is it something that you've pursued?
Yeah, I have. I've read a lot of articles on it, and I've talked to people, not old Secret Service agents, but Secret Service agents who knew people who were there at the time.
Yeah.
And it just seems, it seems too remarkable.
Have not read your entire works. But,
Do you have it?
Have you? But I don't have any time off. No, I'm going. I actually have.
There's a lot to read. I'm just kidding.
I enjoyed it. But have you used the JFK scenario in any of your?
Well, I'll tell you how. As a fiction writer, I'm only bound by plausibility.
Yeah.
And if something is plausible, then I can write about it and feel okay, and people can't say, "Oh, gee, that could never happen." And a case like JFK, where it seemed like so many different weird factors were happening. One guy has a rifle that you have to reload each time to shoot a bullet, and in a span of 5 seconds, he's fired 3 or 4 times, killed the president with 2 shots, and struck the governor of Texas with another shot, and then gotten completely away. And then they capture him sort of on a fluke because another policeman was killed. And then the next day he's in jail and he's coming out and another guy kills him. And Jack Ruby goes to prison, and then Jack Ruby dies of cancer without ever telling what happened with him.
Yeah.
So plausibility for me is kind of like anything goes now. And I look at a case like JFK, and real life is stranger than fiction because as a fiction writer, I only have one brain and one imagination and one set of circumstances that I'm dealing with. The world has 6 billion combinations of things happening all the time. I can never compete with that.
We're almost out of time, but tell me this. How do you write a sex scene?
Well, first of all,
I
act it out.
Just like you act out your murders.
Right, that's right. I'm sorry about that, Michelle. I wish I hadn't said that. Anyway.
But that's the moment in every novelist's life, where you have to write the sex scene and not blush or laugh at yourself or feel like an idiot.
Sex scenes are difficult. You think they would be easy to write because hey, we've all been there, right? We know how to do this, but they're very difficult to write.
It's like finding the words.
It is, and you don't want to be cheesy about it, which you can easily be cheesy about. My sort of pattern is less is more, and I don't describing the physical act does nothing for me because we all know what it looks like.
Yeah.
But sort of giving you the sense of what the two people care for each other and why they're doing this act. That's what's more important to me. It may not be a whole lot of dialogue. It just may be how people look at each other or touch each other. Mm-hmm. And then you move on. It's not going to be page after page after page because that dilutes the whole power of the moment.
Yeah.
And
so you think you're good at it? Writing the sex scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Okay. Well, on that note, we will. On that note, I want to say thank you, David. Come back for every book.
Thank you.
And come back for your anniversaries. And
thank you.
We will meet you all on the other side.